So, I want you to picture something for a second. Picture an entrepreneur back in 2007 who had achieved what, honestly, most of us would consider the absolute pinnacle of digital success.
Right, like the ultimate dream scenario.
Exactly. I mean, we are talking about a massive, highly engaged, six-figure following on Twitter. He was generating a staggering amount of organic traffic from Google straight to his blog.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's the holy grail of traffic right there.
Totally. And, on top of that, LinkedIn influencers and industry peers were just constantly dropping his name. They were citing him as one of the top experts to follow in the sales and marketing space.
So he had all the vanity metrics absolutely maxed out.
Completely maxed out. He had the traffic, the name recognition, the viral reach. He was basically the digital marketing dream personified. But there was just this one massive glaring problem hiding behind all of that.
Right, and it's a painful one, which is that despite being highly respected and incredibly famous in his specific niche, his actual business revenue was completely agonizingly flat.
Yeah, flat, like nothing to show for it.
I mean, he had managed to build this massive audience of peers who would just applaud his content all day long, but he was entirely failing to acquire actual paying clients.
And that is exactly why we are here today. If you are listening to this and you're looking at your own analytics dashboards right now, seeing thousands of likes, dozens of retweets, or this big spike in profile views, but your conversion rate is sitting near zero.
Yeah, that's a tough spot to be in.
It is. And this is your wake-up call. Because today we are taking a deep dive into the foundational premise of Ian Brody's email persuasion, specifically focusing on those introductory chapters.
Which is such a brilliant starting point, honestly.
It really is. We want to uncover the exact mechanism that was holding him back. And to do that, we are looking at a technology that is actually older than the World Wide Web itself.
Something developed in the early 1970s.
Yeah, exactly. And the crazy thing is, this ancient technology completely obliterates the return on investment of every modern social media platform combined.
It really does. And the shift we are going to unpack today requires moving away from that dopamine hit of public popularity.
Oh, that is so hard to let go of, though.
It is. But you have to focus entirely on what we'll call the hidden architecture of inbox intimacy.
I love that phrase, inbox intimacy.
Right. Because the contrast between Brody's public fame and his private bank account, it highlights the systemic trap that modern businesses fall into literally every single day.
We just optimize our efforts for eyeballs and applause, don't we?
Exactly. We completely forget that attention does not automatically equal trust. And trust is, well, it's the only currency that actually facilitates a commercial transaction.
Yeah, that distinction right there between superficial engagement and actual commerce, that is where we need to start. Brody calls this the illusion of popularity.
Which is such a perfect name for it.
It really is. Because it is so easy to look at a high follower count and just assume, oh, they must have a really healthy business.
Right. The illusion is dangerous precisely because it mimics the mechanics of business growth.
Yeah, it looks like progress.
Exactly. Like when you post a clever thought leadership piece on LinkedIn and it gets, say, 500 likes and 50 comments, your brain receives a literal chemical reward.
You feel so productive. You feel totally validated.
You do. But let's actually examine the depth of that engagement. The vast majority of those interactions are incredibly shallow.
Right, they're just skimming.
Yeah, a user is scrolling rapidly, they see a headline, they agree with the sentiment, they tap a thumbs up icon, and they just keep scrolling.
It takes, what, maybe 2 seconds?
Barely. The total time invested in your brand might literally be under 2 seconds.
It's the digital equivalent of window shopping in a really high-end commercial district.
Oh, that's a great analogy. Break that down.
So imagine you're building a stunning, super expensive retail store. You spend a fortune on the window displays. They look amazing.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And thousands of pedestrians walk by your store every single day. They stop, they point at the display, they might even take a picture to send to a friend because the arrangement is just so clever.
Right, high traffic, lots of attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if the front door is locked, or if there is no compelling reason for them to physically walk inside and actually speak to a salesperson, you are operating a tourist attraction.
Wow, yeah. You're not operating a business at all.
No. You're optimizing for foot traffic without a conversion mechanism. And that perfectly encapsulates Brody's situation back in 2007.
He was the window display.
He's the ultimate window display. But to understand how pervasive this illusion is, we really have to look beyond just his personal anecdote and examine the broader macroeconomic data.
Right, because this isn't just one guy having a hard time. The data backs this up in a massive way.
It really does. So let's look at the Direct Marketing Association. They meticulously track the effectiveness of different commercial channels.
And they conducted a comprehensive analysis on return on investment.
Yes, and their findings are wild. They repeatedly demonstrate that email marketing yields an average return on investment of 41 to 1.
Wait, 41 to 1. So putting $1 into a system and extracting $41 back, that sounds like a misprint.
I know it sounds completely fake. That is a 4,100% return.
That is insane. How does that even compare to the platforms where everyone seems to be spending all their time, like social media?
It is nearly twice the return of any other marketing approach they analyzed.
Yeah.
And that includes both search and social.
Twice the return. That is just, I mean, if you need a more granular look at the consumer behavior driving that ROI, we should bring up the Castora data.
Oh, yeah, the Castora study is fascinating.
Right. So they are a data analytics firm, and they conducted this massive 4-year longitudinal study.
4 years is a long time in the digital world.
A lifetime. And they analyzed the online buying patterns of over 72 million customers.
72 million. So this wasn't just like a localized poll of a few tech bros.
No, not at all. This spanned 14 completely different global industries. They were tracking the attribution of actual completed purchases.
Meaning where the final sale actually came from.
Exactly. And they found that links placed in emails generated over 40 times as many purchases as links placed on Facebook or Twitter.
Over 40 times as many closed transactions.
Yeah, 40 times.
Okay, but let me challenge that premise for a second. Because as a marketer, there feels like a massive disconnect between that data and observable human behavior.
Okay, lay it on me.
Well, just walk down any street, sit in any coffee shop, or look at any airport terminal. Literally every single person is staring at a piece of glass in their hand, and the vast majority of them are rapidly scrolling through social media feeds.
That's true. It's everywhere.
Right. So if human attention is so heavily concentrated on social platforms, how is it logically possible that the conversion rate is 40 times lower?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right.
And it comes down to understanding the cognitive state of the user.
The cognitive state, meaning what's going on in their head.
Exactly. You are equating raw attention with commercial intent. And those are two vastly different psychological states.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
We really have to separate the environment where people spend their leisure time from the environment where they spend their commercial time.
Leisure versus commercial.
Right. When a user is on a social feed, their brain is fundamentally in a state of passive reception and entertainment.
Yeah, they are actively trying to turn their brain off.
Exactly.
Like, when I open Instagram at the end of the day, I am looking for a distraction. I just want to see photos of my friends' vacations or, I don't know, watch an entertaining cooking video.
Right. You're not looking to do work or spend money.
Not at all. And the mental friction required to suddenly pivot from that state of relaxed entertainment to, evaluating a complex business proposition and making a financial decision, that friction is incredibly high.
The context is just entirely wrong for a high-value transaction.
It really is.
You are essentially trying to interrupt a television show with a really loud commercial. The user might see it, sure, but their primary goal is just to get back to the entertainment.
Leave me alone. I'm watching my show.
Exactly. Now, contrast that cognitive state with the psychology of the email inbox.
Okay, let's talk about the inbox.
Because the sheer ubiquity of email is often overlooked, mainly because it is so heavily ingrained in our daily lives. We take it for granted.
We really do. How big are we actually talking here?
There are approximately 3.9 billion email accounts globally.
3.9 billion. That is nearly half the population of the entire planet.
Yes, and the volume of traffic passing through those accounts is just staggering. We are sending 182.9 billion emails every single day.
182 billion a day. I can't even wrap my head around that number.
It gets crazier. Out of that massive flow, over 100 billion of those messages are strictly business-related.
Okay, wait, let's put that scale into perspective.
Yeah.
Because Facebook, which we consider the absolute behemoth of human attention, they process roughly 2.7 billion likes a day.
Right.
So we are comparing 2.7 billion split-second passive screen taps to over 100 billion fully formed, direct, business-related written communications.
The depth of interaction is completely asymmetrical. It's not even close.
No, it's totally different.
And McKinsey and Company actually researched how this translates into actual human behavior in the workplace.
Oh, McKinsey, they always have the best data on this stuff.
Right.
What did they find?
They found that professionals and business owners spend an average of 2.5 hours a day exclusively managing business emails.
2.5 hours every day.
Every single day. That translates to roughly 50 hours a month living entirely inside the inbox ecosystem.
50 hours a month. I mean, that is more than an entire standard work week dedicated solely to processing email.
It really is. And that level of time investment fundamentally alters how the brain interacts with the medium.
How so?
Well, this is what we call the engaged brain.
Okay, the engaged brain.
Yeah. When you open your inbox, your physical and mental posture actually changes. You are no longer leaning back, passively consuming content like you are on TikTok.
Right, you lean forward.
Exactly. You physically lean forward. Your brain enters a highly active, task-oriented state.
Because it's work.
Yes. An inbox is essentially a prioritized to-do list generated by the outside world. Every single subject line you look at represents a micro decision.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Like, do I delete this? Do I need to forward this to my team?
Do I need to pay this invoice? Do I click this link to review this proposal?
You are literally primed for decision-making.
You are. You are in the psychological zone of taking action and resolving open loop.
Which is exactly the mindset you want a buyer to be in.
Precisely. And this is why consumer preference data skews so heavily toward the inbox.
What does the preference data look like?
When surveyed across all demographics, between 65% and 78% of adults explicitly state that they prefer to receive commercial communications via email.
Wow. Over 2/3 of adults actively want to be sold to via email.
Yep. And want to know the percentage of adults who prefer to receive commercial communications via social media?
I'm bracing myself. What is it?
It sits between 0 and 4%.
0 to 4%.
Yeah.
Okay, that completely shatters the myth that brands need to be, highly conversational and ever-present on a public timeline to drive revenue.
It really does. Consumers are explicitly asking brands to stop interrupting their leisure time.
Right. They're saying, stop popping up in my feed.
Exactly. They want you to send the information to the place where they are actually mentally prepared to evaluate it.
Which is the inbox.
Which is the inbox.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the architecture of the medium itself.
The architecture. Let's dig into that.
Because the brain is in this highly alert processing state, the environment of the inbox feels fundamentally different from a public timeline.
Yeah, they feel like two completely different worlds.
They are. We really have to analyze the difference between a broadcast and a private correspondence.
Okay, so let me throw out an analogy here.
Huh.
A public social feed is kind of like setting up a stage in the middle of a crowded public square, right?
Sure, yeah.
You're shouting through a PA system, and the people walking by, they know you were addressing a crowd. Even if they stop to listen to you, they feel anonymous.
Right, because they are just part of the audience.
Exactly. They know the message is not exclusively for them.
And that lack of personalization in a broadcast, it completely removes any sense of obligation from the listener.
Oh, that's a really good point. Obligation.
Think about it. If you stand in a public square and you shout a question to the crowd, nobody feels personally compelled to answer you.
Because the responsibility is diffused among hundreds of people, they just assume someone else will answer.
Exactly. But the inbox is deeply psychologically intimate.
It really is.
When a brand sends an email, look at the surrounding context of where that message actually lands.
Oh, man. Yeah. It is sitting in a queue right next to a highly confidential directive from their CEO, a medical test result from their doctor, and a personal check-in from their spouse.
Right. You have bypassed the public square entirely. You have gained direct access to their inner sanctum.
That feels almost invasive when you put it like that.
Well, it highlights why the psychological boundaries of the inbox trigger an entirely different set of behavioral rules.
Like what? What rules?
Well, think about the phenomenon of the unread notification badge on your phone.
Oh, that little red dot. It haunts me.
Right. For the vast majority of professionals, an unread email creates a nagging sense of cognitive dissonance.
It really does. It's like an itch you have to scratch.
They experience this low-level anxiety, a very specific fear of missing out, or FOMO, that essentially forces them to at least scan the subject line of every single message.
Just to clear the dot.
Yes. They have to clear the queue just in case something critical is hiding in there.
And you just don't have that obligation with social media at all.
Not even a little bit.
Like, if I log out of X or Instagram for 3 days, I don't scroll back through 72 hours of content to ensure I didn't miss a promotional post from some software company.
No, nobody does that.
You just refresh the feed and look at what is happening right now. The past is instantly irrelevant.
Yeah. But the inbox demands processing.
It demands an interaction, even if that interaction is the user selecting the email and just hitting the delete key.
Exactly. They still have to perceive your name, read your subject line, and make a conscious decision regarding your brand.
You forced a cognitive touch point.
Yes, you force them to engage with your existence.
Okay, but let me argue from the perspective of a frustrated marketer here.
Go for it.
Because if I send an email and they just immediately delete it, or worse, if it gets caught in the Gmail promotions tab, didn't I just waste my time?
The dreaded promotions tab.
Right. We hear constantly that Google is building these aggressive algorithms specifically to hide marketing emails.
That is a common fear.
And if I am building an audience on Facebook, okay, I get that I am basically a sharecropper on Mark Zuckerberg's land. He can change the algorithm and wipe out my reach.
Overnight.
But if I'm relying on email, aren't I just a sharecropper in Google's inbox? Doesn't Google control the reach there too?
It is a vital question, but we have to look at the mechanics of algorithm independence.
Algorithm independence, okay.
When Facebook changes its algorithm, a post that previously reached 10,000 people might suddenly only be shown to 200 people.
And the user has absolutely no idea you even posted.
Exactly. The platform simply refused to deliver the message to the user's feed. The distribution is entirely out of your hands.
Complete lack of control.
Complete. But email operates on an open protocol. When you hit send, the delivery is guaranteed to the server.
It will arrive at its destination.
Yes. Now, regarding the promotions tab, which frankly is the closest thing email has to an algorithm, the fundamental difference there is user behavior.
Okay, how so? How do users treat the promotions tab?
Studies on the promotions tab show that users actively treat it as a specialized, curated folder for commercial exploration.
Wait, really? They don't just ignore it?
No. When they want to shop or when they are actively looking for a solution or a discount, they open that tab specifically to evaluate offers.
Oh, wow. So they are opting into a highly commercial mindset when they click that tab.
Precisely. So even if you land in the promotions tab, the user who finds you there is arguably in an even deeper state of commercial readiness.
That completely flips the script on how we view that tab.
And furthermore, because email is an owned asset, you actually have the data to circumvent those filters over time.
How do you do that?
By writing your emails skillfully. If you strip away heavy corporate graphics, avoid those classic spam trigger words, and write in plain text as if you are corresponding directly with a respected colleague.
Right, making it look like a real letter.
Exactly. You actually train the recipient to engage. And if they reply to your email or consistently open it, Google's filters recognize the intimacy of that relationship.
And they move you to the primary inbox.
They move you to the primary inbox. You can build a direct algorithmic proof bridge to the user based purely on the quality of your relationship.
You absolutely cannot do that on a social platform.
You can't. You have no mechanism to override the algorithm with personal intimacy on Facebook.
That concept of the owned asset completely reframes the objective of digital marketing for me.
It really is the foundation of everything.
If social media is a rented billboard on the highway, the email list is the actual deed to the property.
That's beautifully put, yes.
Which begs the question, once you actually possess this incredibly intimate algorithm-proof channel, what is its highest and most lucrative function?
Now we get to the core of it. The most lucrative function of an email list is solving the single most expensive leak in any business model.
And what is that leak?
The sheer lack of scalable follow-up.
Okay, scalable follow-up. Let's really break that down because I think most business owners severely underestimate how long it actually takes a consumer to make a purchasing decision.
Drastically underestimate.
Especially in B2B or high-ticket scenarios.
If we look at the mechanics of traditional offline sales, the reality of the buying cycle becomes really obvious.
Yeah, think about offline sales.
If you are selling enterprise software or high-end consulting or even like premium physical products, a prospect almost never hands over their credit card on the very first interaction.
Never. It requires an extensive courting process.
Exactly. You have to build credibility, you have to demonstrate expertise, agitate their pain points, and then systematically dismantle their objections.
Right, and that might require 5, 8, or even 15 individual touch points over the course of several months before the prospect finally reaches the threshold of trust required to actually execute a transaction.
We completely accept that reality in face-to-face sales. We know it takes time.
Yeah, nobody expects to close a $1 million deal on the first handshake.
Right. Yet for some reason, when businesses build a website, they operate under this bizarre delusion that a prospect will land on their homepage for the very first time, read a few paragraphs of copy, and immediately make a high-stakes purchase.
It's madness, and let's use the author's research to highlight just how flawed that expectation is.
Let's do it.
The source material references Brian Carroll, who specializes in lead generation specifically for complex sales.
Yes, his research is eye-opening.
It really is. Carroll's research uncovered this staggering metric. Up to 95% of qualified prospects who visit your website are in the research phase.
95%. Let that sink in.
They are actively experiencing a problem, they are looking for information, but they're absolutely not ready to speak to a sales representative or make a purchase that day.
If your entire digital infrastructure is optimized only for the 5% of people who are ready to buy immediately, you are actively ignoring the vast majority of your total addressable market.
It's like throwing money out the window.
Oh.
But the secondary statistic is what makes this so critical.
Right, the follow-up stat.
Yes. Of that massive pool of researchers who aren't ready to buy today, up to 70% of them will eventually make a purchase from you or from one of your direct competitors.
70%. The demand is completely legitimate.
The demand is there. The timing is just misaligned.
The timing is delayed. And if we look at standard website analytics across almost any industry, they reveal a brutal truth. Over 70% of first-time visitors to a website will poke around for a few minutes, leave, and never, ever return.
Ouch. So you have a massive pool of people who are mathematically guaranteed to spend money eventually,
Yes.
but the overwhelming majority of them just vanish into the ether after their first interaction.
They're just gone.
If you don't capture a way to contact them, you are literally just relying on blind hope that they will somehow remember your specific domain name 6 months later when their budget is finally approved.
And hope is not a scalable business strategy.
It really isn't.
I mean, they're completely inundated with information every day. When the time finally comes to buy, they aren't going to try to remember you. They will simply execute a new Google search and likely land on a competitor's site.
That is tragic. So this gap, this vast chasm between the prospect's initial research phase and their eventual purchasing decision, this is where businesses bleed revenue.
Exactly. And email is the only proactive, reliable bridge across that chasm.
And it is the only way to bridge that chasm at scale.
That's the key word right there, scale.
Think about it. If you run a boutique consulting firm, you cannot physically call 10,000 past website visitors every single week just to check in, offer value, and stay top of mind.
No, you would exhaust your staff in a matter of days. It's physically impossible.
But with an email infrastructure, you can execute a sophisticated multi-touchpoint follow-up sequence to 10,000 people simultaneously with zero marginal cost.
The scalability is just unmatched. And furthermore, the feedback loop is instantaneous and highly precise.
You aren't just broadcasting into the void anymore.
Not at all. You can track the exact open rates. You can see which specific links a prospect is clicking within the email.
Oh, that behavioral tracking is so powerful.
It changes everything. If a prospect on your list suddenly clicks 3 links related to a specific service you offer, the system flags that behavior.
And you immediately know that their commercial intent has shifted.
Exactly. You can adapt your sales strategy based on empirical behavioral data rather than just guessing or intuition.
So this requires a fundamental paradigm shift in how we design our entire online presence.
It really does.
Your website is not a digital brochure. It is not a final destination.
No.
The primary strategic objective of your website is not to facilitate a complex sale on day one.
Never.
The absolute highest and best use of your web traffic is to act as a capture mechanism.
A capture mechanism. I love that phrasing.
You want to offer enough immediate value to convince that researcher to trade their email address for a piece of content.
Right. An ethical bribe.
Yes, thereby granting you permission to relentlessly and intimately follow up with them over the next year.
And that permission to follow up, that is the core engine of a sustainable digital business.
It really is.
Now, if there is any listener out there holding on to some lingering skepticism about whether this strategy truly outperforms the pursuit of social media fame,
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
the ultimate proof is hiding in plain sight. And it is demonstrated by the very people who champion social algorithms.
Yes, the guru paradox.
The guru paradox.
This is arguably the most revealing piece of evidence in the entire source text. We are talking about the absolute titans of the social media industry.
Right. The big names.
These are individuals who have built multi-million-dollar empires selling courses, books, and consulting packages on exactly how to master Facebook, how to go viral on Twitter, and how to dominate social algorithms.
And if social media is truly the ultimate tool for business growth, like they claim in all their marketing materials,
You would logically expect their own business models to reflect that, wouldn't you?
of course, you would expect the primary call to action on their homepages to be focused on funneling users toward their social profiles. Follow me on Twitter.
But when you actually audit their digital footprints, the reality is a stunning contradiction.
It's wild. Let's name names.
Let's do it. If you go to the website of Mari Smith,
The queen of Facebook.
universally recognized as the preeminent expert on Facebook marketing, the most prominent feature on her site is not a directive to follow her on Facebook.
No, they're not.
It is a highly optimized email sign-up box for her Social Scoop newsletter, positioned right above the fold, dominating the entire visual hierarchy of the page.
And that pattern holds true across the entire industry. Amy Porterfield, Lewis Howes, virtually every other major thought leader in the space utilizes the exact same architecture.
I was personally blown away by the mention of Chris Brogan.
Oh, Brogan's quote is incredible.
Man literally wrote the best-selling book, Social Media 101. He's one of the founding fathers of modern social media strategy.
And yet,
Yet, his website features a massive email subscription form on every single page. He even went on record with this incredibly blunt assessment stating, "The hottest and sexiest social network right now is your inbox."
wait, the guy who wrote the literal textbook on social media is publicly admitting that the inbox is the superior network.
He is. It is the ultimate confirmation of everything we've discussed today.
These experts are highly sophisticated marketers. They understand exactly how algorithms function.
They sell the dream of top-of-funnel awareness and viral reach because, well, that is what the market desires. It's sexy.
It is sexy, but when it comes to the hard mechanics of securing their own revenue,
Generating qualified leads, closing high-ticket deals.
they universally abandon the public timeline and rely on the inbox.
They know that 100,000 followers on a rented platform might secure you a book deal, maybe a speaking gig. But a list of 10,000 engaged email subscribers, that will fund a company indefinitely.
They prioritize the capture of an email address above every other digital metric because they know a subscriber is an asset they actually own.
So the takeaway here is we must look at what the experts actually implement in their own back-end systems, not just the front-facing advice they sell from the stage.
Exactly. Watch what they do, not what they tweet.
Well said. So let's pull all of these complex threads together and synthesize the core architectural shift the author is demanding of the reader. If we trace the logic all the way from the beginning.
Right. It begins with the fundamental difference in cognitive load.
Yes.
The brain operates in an active, task-oriented state when processing an inbox, contrasting sharply with the passive, leisure-seeking state of scrolling a social feed.
Because the brain is engaged and actively managing a queue of information, the environment of the inbox maintains a deeply intimate, personal boundary.
You are communicating right within their private sanctuary, sitting alongside messages from their family and their employer.
And because you bypass the public broadcast filter and secure direct, algorithm-independent access to that intimate space, you establish the perfect mechanism for scalable follow-up.
You can systematically bridge the gap between the 95% of users who are just researching today and the eventual moment when they are finally ready to execute a transaction.
That scalable intimacy is the precise mechanism that drives that wild 41-to-1 return on investment.
It completely blows past the illusion of popularity and those vanity metrics that trapped Ian Brody back in 2007.
And it is the exact reason the world's top social media experts secretly rely on email to run their own empires.
The paradigm shift is absolute. Email cannot be viewed as just a secondary broadcast tool or a boring digital newsletter.
No, it must be recognized as a scalable relationship engine.
A scalable relationship engine, that is it.
It is the only reliable infrastructure that predictably converts passive attention into active trust and ultimately into sustainable revenue.
That completely redefines the hierarchy of digital marketing. And honestly, the source material leaves the reader with a highly specific call to action to begin implementing this infrastructure.
Oh, right. We need to pass that imperative on to the listener right now.
We do, because the author insists on immediate clarity. Before you draft a single message or design a capture form on your site, you must define the commercial objective of the engine.
Meaning, what do you actually want it to do?
Exactly. Take out a physical piece of paper and write down your exact goals for building an email list.
Be specific. Are you trying to reduce the sales cycle from 6 months down to 3 months?
Are you trying to increase the lifetime value of an existing client by 20%?
Write down the specific metric and assign a hard deadline for its achievement.
You have to establish the target before you build the weapon.
Because now that we have unequivocally established the inbox as the most powerful commercial environment on the internet, you face an entirely new, deeply intimidating challenge.
Oh yeah, securing the email address is merely the entry fee.
It just gets you in the door.
The moment you land in that intimate space, you are one click away from being permanently banished.
Exactly. If you send a generic corporate press release into someone's private sanctuary, the mental friction is immediate.
They will hit unsubscribe, and you lose the asset forever.
So how do you craft a message that actually belongs in that space?
How do you write to a stranger so effectively that they feel compelled to reply?
Well, in our next deep dive into this material, we are going to tear apart Chapter 1.
I can't wait for that.
We will explore the psychological framework for mapping the mind of your ideal client, extracting their unarticulated fears and their deepest aspirations.
So that when your message finally arrives in their inbox, it feels less like a marketing pitch and more like you have been secretly reading their diary.
The methodology for achieving that level of resonance transforms copywriting from a creative guessing game into a predictable science.
That is the code we will crack next.
Until then, if you find yourself endlessly refreshing your analytics, chasing the dopamine of a viral post while your revenue stagnates, remember the illusion.
You might be building the most beautiful window display in the world, but if you want to invite them inside and actually close the deal, you have to meet them in the inbox.
So think about this for a second. What if the secret to winning clients and skyrocketing your sales wasn't about shouting the loudest?
Oh, I love that. Like, what if it was just about simply knowing exactly who you're whispering to?
Exactly. Because, I mean, think about the sheer volume of noise in the modern business world right now.
It's deafening.
It really is. If you look at the raw data, there's something like 350 billion emails sent every single day.
That's just a staggering number to even wrap your head around.
Right. And the vast majority of those are just these generic marketing blasts, automated sequences, and cold outreach.
Yeah, we've basically been conditioned to view email marketing as this purely quantitative battlefield. Like it's just a numbers game.
Totally. You just carpet bomb a massive list of leads and you assume, well, you know, a 0.5% conversion rate is just the cost of doing business.
But today, we're actually going to tear down that entire paradigm.
We are. We're doing a deep dive into the foundational first chapter of this highly influential book called Email Persuasion.
And what's so great about this source material is that it completely inverts that conventional wisdom of how you capture human attention.
Yeah, the paradigm shift here is profound because, honestly, it challenges the core survival instinct of most businesses.
It really does. I mean, the default setting for a growing company is always to cast the widest net possible.
Right. The assumption is that restricting your audience somehow restricts your revenue.
Exactly. But the framework laid out in this chapter, specifically the mechanics of building this psychologically rich, ideal client persona and mapping it out, it shows that the exact opposite is true.
Which is kind of mind-blowing.
It is, because in a high-noise environment, a wide net catches absolutely nothing.
So true.
Only radical surgical empathy actually cuts through those cognitive filters of a modern consumer or, a business decision maker.
And that concept, that surgical empathy, that's exactly what we're going to dissect for the rest of this deep dive.
Yeah, because whether you are running a mature B2B enterprise with these massive, complex sales cycles, or you're just like a solo consultant trying to dial in your very first acquisition funnel.
This framework is the ultimate shortcut.
It really is. It makes your communication irresistible.
Because we are shifting the spotlight entirely away from your product, away from your features, and what you want to sell.
Right, and aiming it with microscopic precision at the internal psychology of what your client desperately needs to buy.
But to even begin this process, we have to dismantle a very specific, deeply ingrained marketing fallacy.
Oh, the idea of the average customer.
Yes. The source material introduces this as the persona principle.
And the foundational error most marketers make here is attempting to aggregate their audience.
What do you mean by aggregate specifically?
Well, if you look at a company's CRM, you're going to see a cluster of different buyer profiles, right?
Yeah.
So you might have a 28-year-old mid-level manager who actually champions your software on the ground floor.
Okay, yeah.
But then you also have a 55-year-old CFO who actually signs the check.
Right. Two totally different people.
Exactly. But the natural, albeit flawed, instinct is to find the mathematical average of those profiles and write messaging that theoretically speaks to both of them.
Oh, I see. So you end up writing for a 41.5-year-old hybrid who doesn't actually exist in the real world.
Precisely. You're writing for a statistical ghost.
A statistical ghost, wow.
And when you do that, the language inherently degrades. It becomes sanitized.
Because you're trying not to offend anyone or leave anyone out.
Exactly. You strip away the specific visceral pain points of that 28-year-old manager, and you strip away the high-level financial anxieties of the CFO.
So what are you even left with?
Nothing but sterile corporate speak. You start using words like synergy and optimized workflows and comprehensive solutions.
Oh, it's the worst. It means nothing.
Exactly. You water down the messaging to ensure it doesn't alienate anyone, and as a direct result of that dilution, the message fails to resonate with absolutely everyone.
Man, the source material uses a really specific visualization for this that I loved. It frames the market as an archery target.
Oh, the archery analogy is brilliant.
It really is. It argues that the persona you need to draw up, this single, highly specific, unapologetically narrow ideal client, is the absolute dead center bullseye.
Right.
Now, logically, your total addressable market is scattered all across that target board. Some clients are in the inner rings, some are in the outer rings.
Some are barely hanging onto the edge of the phone.
Exactly. And the trap is thinking that you need an arrow the size of a dinner plate to hit all of them at once.
Yeah, because when you try to fire a massive generic arrow, you are essentially closing your eyes and shooting into the sky.
Just hoping something hits.
Exactly. You're relying entirely on the law of large numbers. But if you calibrate your sights strictly on the bullseye, if you write an email that speaks exclusively and intimately to that single hyper-specific persona, your message hits the center with tremendous force.
And mathematically, a highly specific message that strikes the center of a target will invariably resonate closer to the individuals in the outer rings than a vague, generalized blast ever could.
It's counterintuitive, but it's absolutely true.
I understand the theory, but I have to put myself in the shoes of a founder or a head of sales here, and I have a major psychological block with this.
I get that. It feels risky.
It does. Narrowing focus, this drastically feels terrifying. If I am looking at my total addressable market and I see all those highly profitable, totally viable clients sitting in the outer rings of the target, intentionally whispering only to the bullseye feels like professional negligence.
It feels like you're actively ignoring revenue.
Yes. Like if I sell a project management tool and I decide my absolute bullseye is a creative director at a mid-sized ad agency, aren't I instantly alienating the IT director at a logistics firm who also desperately needs my software?
See, that is the most common cognitive hurdle in marketing, this fear of exclusion.
It's a real fear, though.
It is, but you are looking at it through the lens of TAM, total addressable market, which is a purely quantitative metric.
Okay, fair.
But communication doesn't work like that. It operates on qualitative psychological triggers.
So how does that bridge the gap between the creative director and the IT director?
Well, to understand why whispering to the creative director doesn't alienate the logistics IT director, we have to look at how the human brain processes authenticity.
Okay, I'm with you.
The brain is remarkably adept at filtering out marketing noise. It scans for patterns of generic sales copy and immediately discards them.
Right, we all do that. We see synergy and we tune out.
Exactly. But specificity bypasses that filter. Specificity acts as a proxy for expertise and reality.
Oh, interesting. So it's not about the literal details matching perfectly. It's about the depth of resolution in the picture you're painting.
You nailed it. When you describe the hyper-specific, agonizing reality of a creative director trying to wrangle 15 different freelance designers across 3 time zones using messy spreadsheets.
It sounds awful, by the way.
Yeah, right. But that level of granular detail creates a limbic resonance. It feels deeply authentic.
If the IT director reads that.
Exactly. The IT director at the logistics firm reads that same email. Now, the literal details do not apply to him at all. He doesn't deal with freelance designers. He deals with truck drivers and warehouse managers.
Right.
But his brain recognizes the structural authenticity of the pain. He thinks, wow, this writer deeply understands the chaos of decentralized management.
Oh, wow.
He trusts the depth of your understanding, even if the specific flavor of the chaos is different.
But the authenticity translates across the rings of the target.
Exactly. Whereas a generic email just stating, "We help you manage decentralized teams," well, that carries zero emotional weight for either of them.
That makes a lot of sense when you frame it around how the brain filters out corporate jargon. The specificity acts as a Trojan horse for trust.
A Trojan horse for trust. I like that.
Because if you can describe one person's problem with terrifying accuracy, everyone else just assumes you probably have the intellectual horsepower to solve their problem too.
Precisely.
So if you are analyzing your own business right now, the immediate application of this principle is a ruthless auditing of your client base.
You have to be ruthless. You cannot build a persona around 5 different avatars.
You have to isolate the single client type you genuinely enjoy working with, the one who extracts the highest ROI from your product, and the one whose acquisition cost makes the most economic sense.
You lock onto that one specific individual and you temporarily mute the rest of the market.
But that brings up a massive operational problem, doesn't it?
It does.
Because once you pick the bullseye, how do you actually know what to say to them? I mean, sitting in a boardroom theorizing about what a creative director wants is exactly how you end up back in the trap of generic marketing.
That right there is where most marketing campaigns fall apart before a single word of copy is even written.
Really, just in the data gathering phase.
Oh, absolutely. Because companies rely way too heavily on quantitative data. They look at demographic surveys, net promoter scores, click-through rates.
And that's not enough.
No, because quantitative data only tells you what happened. It doesn't tell you why it happened.
Right, right.
To build a psychologically rich persona, the source material insists on a level of qualitative immersion that is, frankly, uncomfortable for a lot of business owners.
Yeah, it references Ken McCarthy here, a pioneer in the early days of online marketing. He coined a brilliant term for this, the road repair method of market research.
The road repair method, it's such a great visual.
It is. The directive McCarthy gives is to get at your ivory tower and
Ah.
walk, don't drive the roadway.
Yes.
Like if you were driving down a road at 60 miles an hour, surveying the landscape from a distance, everything looks relatively smooth. You might notice a massive crater, but you were completely blind to the micro frictions, the small potholes, the uneven grading that actually degrades the driving experience over time.
Exactly. But when you walk the roadway, the texture of the environment changes entirely.
You feel everything.
You're forced to feel every bump, every crack, every inefficiency. In a business context, driving is looking at a spreadsheet of your customer churn rate.
And walking?
Walking is sitting silently next to a user while they attempt to navigate your checkout process. Or shadowing a B2B client in their office for a day to see how they actually use your service in the wild.
Just watching them work.
Right. When you immerse yourself in the customer's unedited reality, the gaps in the marketplace jump out at you. You don't need a high-level analytics team to spot them. The friction is visceral.
This reminds me so much of a core principle in software development, specifically in UI/UX testing.
Oh, yeah. How so?
It's the equivalent of trying to find a bug in a complex piece of software.
If you want to know why users are abandoning an app after 3 minutes, you can't rely on reading the user manual, and you can't just look at the raw backend code.
Right, because the code might look fine.
Exactly. The code might be syntactically perfect. Everything should theoretically work. But to find the actual friction point, you have to run the program.
You have to experience it. You have to put the phone in your hand, try to navigate with your thumb, input the messy, unformatted data that a real user would input, and feel exactly where the interface becomes clunky or counterintuitive. You have to experience the crash yourself.
That is a perfect parallel, because human behavior, much like user interaction, is incredibly messy and deeply habituated.
Habituated, yeah.
And habituation is the exact reason why surveys are fundamentally flawed instruments for deep persona research.
Tell me more about that. Why do surveys fail?
Well, the human brain is an efficiency machine. When we encounter a recurring piece of friction, a small pothole in our daily routine, our brain eventually wires itself to just ignore it.
We just get used to it.
Exactly. We develop a workaround. We learn to intuitively double-click a button that should really only require a single click.
Oh, you did all the time.
Right. Or we learn to export a file to Excel, reformat it manually, and upload it to another software, all without consciously registering the absurdity of the wasted 20 minutes.
Because we drive over that same pothole every single day, we just learn to subconsciously swerve the steering wheel a quarter-inch to the left so
Yeah.
we don't spill our coffee.
That's exactly it.
We stop seeing the pothole entirely.
Would do. And if you send that person a survey asking, what are the biggest inefficiencies in your workflow? They will not mention the pothole.
Because they don't even know it's there anymore.
They are functionally blind to it. A survey can only capture the pain points a user is actively, consciously obsessing over.
Right.
But the most lucrative insights, the kind of insights that allow you to write an email that makes the reader feel like you are reading their diary, those come from observing the silent workarounds they have normalized.
Wow. So the mandate here is active observation.
Highly active.
Like if you are selling a B2B service, you don't send a Google form to the procurement manager. You ask for 30 minutes to share their screen on a Zoom call and watch how they physically process an invoice.
Yes, watch the actual process.
And if you are selling a physical product, you find the forums, the Reddit threads, or the physical environments where the product is used in its raw, unvarnished state. You are hunting for that normalized friction.
You're hunting for the swerve.
Yeah, the swerve. And once you have walked that roadway and gathered this incredibly rich qualitative texture, you're going to be faced with a mountain of disorganized behavioral data.
It can be overwhelming.
Totally.
Yeah.
So the text introduces a highly structured methodology to distill this chaos into an actionable weapon. They call it the Customer Insight Map.
The Customer Insight Map. This is the central engine of the entire framework.
And it's a physical thing.
It is. It is a literal physical document. The text prescribes taking a large sheet of paper and dividing it into 4 distinct quadrants.
Okay, 4 quadrants.
But before you touch any of the quadrants, the very first instruction is to secure a physical photograph of a real human being who represents your persona and place it dead center on the page.
Okay, I have to admit, when I first encountered this specific instruction, my internal skeptic just flared up.
Really? Why?
It just felt a bit juvenile, almost like a high school vision board, you know?
I can see that.
Like we are talking about high-level business strategy, analyzing cohort data and conversion metrics, and suddenly we're cutting out pictures from a magazine. It just felt jarringly out of place in a serious marketing framework.
Sure, it sounds a bit arts and crafts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as I thought about the mechanics of copywriting, I realized it's actually a deeply necessary psychological hack to override our own bad habits.
Exactly. It addresses a phenomenon called cognitive detachment.
Cognitive detachment.
Yeah. When a marketer or a founder sits down to write an email, they usually have a secondary screen open with their CRM dashboard, their open rates, their click-through analytics.
There's numbers everywhere.
Right. They are surrounded by the quantitative abstraction of their audience, and human beings are simply incapable of feeling empathy for a spreadsheet.
It's impossible.
If you are looking at aggregate data, your brain automatically shifts into a broadcast modality. You write like a corporation addressing a stadium.
But the moment you put a face on the wall, like an actual pair of eyes staring back at you, it hijacks the brain's evolutionary hardwiring.
It really does. We have specialized neural circuitry designed exclusively for facial recognition and interpersonal empathy.
So you can't help it?
Right. When you look at a face, mirror neurons fire. You subconsciously start evaluating their emotional state. It physically forces you to stop broadcasting to a demographic and start having a one-on-one conversation with a human being.
It acts as an unbreakable anchor for your tone.
And it cannot be a generic stock photo of 2 business people shaking hands in a brightly lit glass conference room.
Oh no, the fake smiles.
Right. It has to look like a real person experiencing the actual friction of their day.
Okay, so once that anchor is established in the center with the photo, we can begin populating the map. Starting with quadrant A, located on the right side of the page.
Yes, quadrant A.
This quadrant is dedicated to who they are, the foundational demographics. So this is the baseline data. We're talking about age, location, and educational background.
The standard stuff.
Right. But it goes deeper into their societal positioning. What is their typical career trajectory? Are they married? Do they have a mortgage? What are their hobbies outside of the office?
It gets really granular.
It does. And crucially, the text asks you to identify who they admire and who they despise. I found that to be a remarkably sharp detail to include in the baseline profile.
It's brilliant, honestly, because identifying their heroes and their villains provides a massive shortcut to understanding their worldview and their internal values.
How so?
Well, if your persona deeply admires a highly aggressive, growth-at-all-costs tech founder, that tells you something about the language and the ambition you need to mirror.
Okay, yeah.
But if they admire a slow, deliberate, craftsman-style entrepreneur, your messaging needs to completely shift its cadence.
That makes total sense.
However, Quadrant A is merely the shell. It is the necessary context, but it rarely contains the actual triggers that drive a purchasing decision.
So where do we find those?
To find the friction, we move to the left side of the paper, Quadrant B. And this focuses entirely on their external targets and pressures.
Okay, so quadrant B is where we map out the literal, measurable metrics that govern this person's professional survival.
Exactly. This is the realm of KPIs, OKRs, and board mandates.
Like, if your persona is an employee, what are the specific targets their manager has mathematically tied to their bonus?
Or if they are a founder, what are the profitability margins demanded by their investors?
What are their competitors doing that is forcing their hand? How is new industry legislation threatening their operational model?
Right. We are cataloging the external forces applying pressure to their daily existence.
The source material provides a highly grounded example to illustrate this, which I think is helpful.
Yeah, let's walk through it.
So, let's say your business sells a specialized accounting automation software, and you have determined that your bullseye persona is the head of accounts receivable at a mid-market manufacturing firm.
Okay, I can picture them.
In Quadrant B, you would isolate their primary external pressure. Perhaps the CFO has officially mandated that the head of accounts receivable must reduce invoice write-offs by 20% by the end of the fiscal third quarter.
Ouch. That is a hard, inescapable external target.
Now, here is where the strategy usually derails for amateur marketers.
Oh, big time.
An amateur looks at Quadrant B, sees that 20% reduction mandate, and immediately stops thinking.
They think they found the golden ticket.
Right. So they write an email with the subject line, "How our software reduces invoice write-offs by 20%.
It seems perfectly logical on the surface.
It does. You identified the target and you offered the solution. But the text aggressively pushes back against this, arguing that writing solely to Quadrant B is a massive missed opportunity.
Why?
Because the external pressure is never the actual motivator.
It's a critical distinction in behavioral economics. Human beings do not possess a deep biological drive to optimize corporate efficiency metrics.
We really don't.
The head of accounts receivable does not wake up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat because the company's EBITDA might be slightly off projection.
No one cares about EBITDA at 3 a.m.
They care about the corporate metrics strictly because of what that metric dictates about their personal survival and status.
Right.
Quadrant B merely sets the stage. It provides the vocabulary of their stress. But to find the leverage that actually converts a prospect into a buyer, you must move to the top of the map. Quadrant C.
Quadrant C. And this is their internal aspirations and challenges.
Exactly, the internal engine.
This is where we strip away the corporate veneer and hunt for the raw human emotion. And the primary tool for excavating Quadrant C is playing what I like to call the ruthless why game.
The why game is so powerful.
It really is. You take the sterile external target from Quadrant B, you put it on the table, and you aggressively interrogate it by asking why, until you hit a psychological bedrock.
Let's trace this out practically, because the execution of the why game is where the true value of this framework actually lies.
Okay, let's do it. Let's look at a different scenario.
All right, suppose your ideal client is the founder of a small B2B logistics company. You look at their Quadrant B, and their stated external goal is to double their gross revenue over the next 36 months.
Okay, so we begin the interrogation. I ask the founder, either literally or through my behavioral research, why is it so imperative that you double your revenue in exactly 3 years?
Now, the initial answer will still be somewhat corporate. They might say, well, because doubling our revenue will elevate our valuation multiple to a point where the business becomes highly attractive to a private equity buyout.
Right, but we haven't hit the bedrock yet. That's still a corporate answer. So we ask again, why do you want a private equity firm to buy you out? What is the actual purpose of the exit?
Now the answers start to shift inward. They say, because if I secure that buyout, I can fully step away from the daily operations and effectively retire in my late 40s.
Getting closer, but still not quite there. Why is retiring in your late 40s the ultimate obsession?
And here is where you strike the limbic system.
The bedrock.
Exactly. They say, because running this logistics firm for the last decade has been an absolute nightmare of cash flow volatility. I am terrified every single month about making payroll. It is destroying my health. It is straining my marriage. And I want to pay off my mortgage, secure my children's future, and never experience the suffocating anxiety of an income trough ever again.
Boom, right there.
That's it.
The terrifying anxiety of the income trough. The desperate need for safety, predictability, and family security. That is the bedrock. That is quadrant C.
It's heavy, isn't it?
It's incredibly heavy. And look at the massive chasm between where we started and where we ended up. We started with doubling gross revenue, a completely sterile mathematical concept.
And we ended with the visceral terror of failing to provide for a family.
The strategic implications of that excavation are just staggering. If you only understood quadrant B, your marketing copy would read, accelerate your revenue growth and maximize your B2B valuation multiples.
Which is indistinguishable from 1,000 other emails in their inbox.
Literally a dime a dozen.
It requires the neocortex, the logical, analytical part of the brain, to process it. And the neocortex is highly skeptical and easily fatigued.
But when you write to quadrant C, you bypass the neocortex entirely and speak directly to the emotional core.
You're speaking to the heart.
You write an email about the hidden costs of cash flow anxiety. You tell a story about the relief of building predictable systems that allow a founder to finally sleep through the night without checking their phone for late invoice notifications.
Because you are addressing the silent, agonizing conversation they are already having with themselves on their commute home.
Yes. There is a legendary quote from the advertising pioneer John Caples mentioned in the text that perfectly encapsulates this. He said, start by entering the conversation already going on in your prospect's mind.
Caples understood that you cannot force a new conversation onto a prospect. You cannot make them care about your software's features.
They just won't do it.
You can only intersect with the anxieties and desires that are already looping endlessly in their consciousness.
Like the head of accounts receivable we discussed earlier.
Exactly. Their internal conversation isn't about the 20% write-off metric. Their internal loop is, if I miss this target, I'm going to be stuck in this toxic department for another 3 years under a boss I despise, and I won't get the promotion that allows me to move to a better school district.
Man, that is the conversation you must enter.
It's the only one that matters.
So, practically speaking, if you are analyzing your target persona right now, take their stated business objective, write it down, and play the why game.
Force yourself down 4 or 5 layers.
Yeah, force yourself down into that uncomfortable psychological motivation. Your email should be constructed around the emotional revelation at the very bottom of that chain.
Absolutely.
But, and this is a big but, even if you perfectly articulate their deepest desires, there is still a massive barrier to entry.
Oh, definitely.
They might feel completely understood by you, but they still have to take the risk of handing you their money or their professional reputation.
Which brings us to the final and arguably most complex section of the map. Quadrant D.
Located at the bottom of the page.
Yes, this is the domain of the know and feel factors.
Quadrant D is where empathy transforms into strategy. You synthesize everything you've learned from their demographics, their external pressures, and their deep internal fears, and you ask a highly specific 2-part question.
First, what specific factual evidence does this person need to literally know logically to justify choosing me?
Okay, that's the first part.
And second, what emotional state do they need to feel to consider this transaction safe?
Logic and emotion. The no is the rational justification they will use to defend the decision to their boss or their spouse.
Right.
The feel is the internal emotional safety required to actually pull the trigger.
Exactly.
The source material provides an incredibly detailed extended case study to illustrate how these two factors interact. It introduces a consultant named Mike and his ideal client persona, Tony Jones.
This is a great example. Let's break down this dynamic because this is where the theoretical framework translates directly into tactical email copywriting.
Okay, so who is the consultant, Mike?
Mike represents the highly capable expert. He is an independent procurement consultant who previously served as the chief procurement officer for a massive global corporation.
Yeah, so he knows his stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
He has spent 20 years in the trenches negotiating complex supply chain contracts. He possesses a wealth of deeply specialized knowledge.
And Mike has done the rigorous work of building his customer insight map. He has walked the roadway, he has played the why game, and he has defined his absolute bullseye persona, whom he names Tony Jones.
Right.
Tell us about Tony's psychological profile.
Tony Jones represents a highly specific yet very common corporate archetype. Tony has just been promoted to the role of procurement director at a mid-sized enterprise.
Good for Tony.
Well, here's the catch. His background is not actually in procurement. He came up through manufacturing and warehouse operations.
Oh, I see.
He was given this title because he is a capable manager, and his Quadrant C internal aspiration is to leverage this director role as a stepping stone to become a general manager within the next 5 years.
But because he lacks the granular technical background in procurement, Tony is operating under a massive cloud of imposter syndrome.
He is terrified.
He knows he is responsible for millions of dollars in external spend, but he doesn't actually know how to run a complex supplier negotiation.
Exactly. He is constantly worried that his lack of specific expertise is going to be exposed, ruining his trajectory to general manager.
That is stressful. So Mike, the consultant, looks at Tony's profile and moves to Quadrant D to map out the know and feel factors.
Yes.
What does Tony need to know before he will sign a consulting contract with Mike?
Tony needs to logically know that Mike possesses the deep, unquestionable expertise that Tony lacks. He needs factual proof of Mike's years in the corporate trenches.
So that if Tony's CEO asks why they hired this specific consultant, Tony can point to Mike's concrete resume as a shield.
Precisely. That's the no factor. It's straightforward expertise.
But what does Tony need to feel? This is where the imposter syndrome dictates the strategy.
Tony needs to feel profoundly safe. Because of his insecurity, Tony is terrified of hiring what the industry calls a black box consultant.
A black box consultant, what's that?
That's someone who comes in, acts like the smartest person in the room, takes over the data, does a bunch of incomprehensible math behind closed doors, delivers a slick PDF report, and just leaves.
Oh, I can see why that's Tony's worst nightmare.
Exactly. Because if a black box consultant leaves and the CEO asks Tony to explain the methodology behind the savings, Tony won't be able to do it.
The consultant will have made Tony look foolish in his own department.
Exactly. Therefore, Tony needs to feel that Mike is not a threat. He needs to feel that Mike will act as a silent mentor, someone who will transparently explain the methodology, empower Tony with the knowledge, and ultimately allow Tony to present the victories to the executive board as his own.
Wow. Tony needs to feel that hiring Mike will make Tony look like a hero, not a bystander.
Exactly. And this is the critical juncture where amateur copywriting completely fails.
Oh, 100%. Because if an amateur marketer identifies that Tony needs expertise, their immediate instinct is to broadcast that expertise as loudly as possible.
Yes.
They read an email that essentially screams, I am an industry veteran. I have 20 years of experience. Look at my credentials.
Or they tried to provide value by sending a sterile bulleted list with the subject line, 7 proven strategies for cutting your external spend.
Right. And what is the psychological result of those emails? The resume blast just comes across as arrogant and completely ignores Tony's need to feel safe.
Totally. And the list of 7 proven strategies might be technically accurate, and Tony might even save the email, but it does absolutely nothing to address the know and feel factors.
Because a sterile list does not prove Mike has actual trench experience.
No, it doesn't. Nor does it prove Mike is a safe collaborative mentor. It is just raw data.
So how does Mike actually write the email?
Well, he utilizes the ultimate psychological hack for bypassing critical resistance, narrative. Instead of telling Tony that he is an expert, Mike shows him through a deeply specific story.
Show, don't tell.
Exactly. Mike writes an email recounting a highly stressful, complex negotiation he had to navigate during his time as a chief procurement officer during a massive corporate merger.
Okay, I'm hooked already.
Right. He details the friction, the mistakes he almost made, and the specific strategies he used to salvage the deal. And he seamlessly weaves the 7 strategies for cutting spend directly into the fabric of that narrative.
Oh, that is so smart. The brilliance of this approach is in its subtlety.
It really is.
When Tony reads this email, his neocortex is engaged by the narrative flow of the story. He is learning the 7 strategies, but subconsciously, his brain is furiously checking off the boxes in Quadrant D.
Exactly. As Mike describes the granular details of the corporate merger, Tony mathematically verifies the no factor.
He thinks, you cannot fake these details. This guy, Mike, has actually lived this. He is a legitimate expert.
And crucially, the feel factor is satisfied simultaneously.
How so?
Because Mike is openly sharing his past struggles, his thought processes, and his hard-won lessons in a conversational tone. He is actively demonstrating that he is a mentor.
He is showing, not telling, that his methodology is transparent.
Right. Tony feels a sense of relief. He feels safe. The narrative structure acts as a delivery mechanism that simultaneously imparts value, proves authority, and disarms emotional insecurity.
All without ever aggressively asking for a sale.
It is the pinnacle of sophisticated communication. You are satisfying the logical requirement for proof and the emotional requirement for safety in a single, cohesive interaction.
And because you built the customer insight map beforehand, you knew exactly which fears needed to be disarmed.
Exactly.
This is such a monumental takeaway if you are listening to this right now and thinking about your own email sequences. Take a hard look at the biggest, most paralyzing fear your ideal client has about engaging with your business.
You have to find that fear.
Are they a small business owner terrified that your agency is going to be too expensive and drain their capital?
Or are they an enterprise IT director terrified that migrating to your software will cause 3 days of catastrophic server downtime?
You must identify that specific fear in Quadrant D, and then you must absolutely resist the urge to just write an email saying, "Don't worry, we aren't too expensive," or "Our migration is totally safe."
It doesn't work.
It doesn't. You have to wrap your everyday advice, your case studies, and your value adds in narratives that passively prove those fears are entirely unfounded. You let the story do the heavy lifting of building trust.
That's beautifully said. If we pull back and synthesize the entire journey we have taken through this chapter, from the persona principle to walking the roadway to mapping the external pressures, excavating the internal fears, and answering the know and feel factors, the core thesis becomes blindingly clear.
What is it, in your view?
Effective marketing, particularly in an intimate space like an email inbox, is not about the flawless execution of grammar. It is not about deploying the slickest HTML templates or mastering the dark arts of manipulative, high-pressure sales psychology.
It is, at its absolute core, an act of profound, radical empathy.
Yes, empathy.
It is the arduous, unglamorous work of caring enough about your client to understand their daily reality better than they understand it themselves.
When you achieve that level of empathy, a fundamental transformation occurs in how your business is perceived.
The dynamic completely flips.
It does.
Yeah.
Your emails cease to be categorized by the brain as marketing spam. They are no longer an intrusion to be deleted.
They become a lifeline.
Exactly. They become a highly anticipated, welcome lifeline to a human being who feels, perhaps for the first time in their professional life, truly and deeply understood.
You stop being a vendor, shouting at a stadium, and you become a trusted advisor whispering the exact right words into the ear of the exact right person.
It is a total redefinition of the relationship.
And that foundation of empathetic trust creates a competitive moat that no amount of generic, highly funded marketing blasts can ever penetrate. Of course, mapping out this incredibly detailed psychological blueprint is just the foundation. You now have a hyper-specific bullseye, and you know exactly how to speak to their deepest fears and aspirations.
But there's still a hurdle.
A huge one. The glaring question remains, how do you actually get this person to give you their email address in the first place?
Right, the acquisition.
How do you earn the initial permission to step inside the sacred, highly guarded space of their inbox?
Well, in our next deep dive, we're going to transition from the psychology of empathy to the hard mechanics of acquisition.
The transition from understanding the persona to capturing the lead is where the theoretical framework meets rigorous tactical execution.
I can't wait for that. We will uncover the specific strategies for building a massive, highly eager list of subscribers who actually want to hear from you. We will explore all of those mechanics in the next installment.
It's going to be great.
But before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something that connects the empathy we discussed today to the broader technological landscape we are all navigating. Oh, this is a good point.
As you go back to your business, think about this reality. We have firmly entered an era where artificial intelligence can instantly generate 10,000 perfectly formatted, grammatically flawless marketing emails in a matter of seconds.
It's true.
It can optimize subject lines through infinite A/B testing and personalize merge tags at a scale that is humanly impossible. But an algorithm has never walked the roadway.
No, it hasn't.
And AI has never sat across a desk from a terrified new procurement director and recognized the subtle micro-expressions of imposter syndrome.
Exactly.
So perhaps, as technology commoditizes the basic act of writing, the deep, messy, intensely human empathy that you map out in a client persona isn't just a clever marketing tactic anymore.
It's more than that.
Perhaps it is the single, absolute, only true competitive advantage you have left.
What if the biggest mistake you're making in your business right now has literally nothing to do with your product?
Right. Or your service, for that matter.
Yeah, nothing to do with what you actually sell, but entirely with how you're inviting people to hear about it.
It's a question that fundamentally upends how most of us approach growth, you know,
Exactly.
because we pour thousands of hours,
And dollars.
right, thousands of dollars into perfecting a product, refining a service, polishing the branding. But then we treat the actual doorway people have to walk through to discover that value as like a total afterthought.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are dissecting the exact mechanics of quickly building a high-value list of email subscribers.
And this is based on Chapter 2 of Ian Brody's Email Persuasion. The chapter is literally called Sign GNUP.
Yes, Signy Me UP. And if you are listening to this right now, whether you're a freelancer trying to escape that brutal feast or famine cycle,
Oh, we all know that cycle.
or, a startup founder looking for traction, or a consultant wanting a steady stream of leads, understanding how to turn casual, fleeting internet traffic into an engaged, permission-based audience is basically the ultimate cheat code for predictable growth.
It really is.
Yeah.
But I think we should establish exactly what we mean by growth in this context, because there is a pretty toxic misconception out there.
Like vanity metrics.
Exactly. What we are discussing today is not about vanity metrics. It's not about finding some sneaky hack to inflate a database just so you can boast about having 50,000 people on a list.
Right, because a massive list of people who ignore you is actually a liability.
It's a huge liability, not an asset. This is about engineering an ethical, high-converting ecosystem. It's about building a database of enthusiastic subscribers who actually anticipate your emails.
They want to hear from you.
Yes,
Yeah.
everything else like sales, client acquisition, brand loyalty, it all stems from that single foundation of willing attention.
I'm really glad you brought up the word hack, actually, because I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room. The temptation.
The anxiety of zeros.
The anxiety of zero, yes. If you are just starting out or you're launching a new venture, you know this feeling. You are sitting there at your desk staring at a dashboard that says you have exactly 3 subscribers.
And 2 of them are your parents.
Exactly. 2 are your parents and 1 is your alternate email address. You
Bro.
just want to get the ball rolling. The anxiety of zero is just overwhelming.
It really is. And the anxiety of zero makes smart people do very self-destructive things.
Right.
It breeds this desperation for momentum that usually leads to taking shortcuts. And in the world of email ecosystems, the shortcuts don't just, fail to work. They actively kill the ecosystem before it even takes its first breath.
Okay, let's unpack this. I'll play devil's advocate here for a second. Let's say I'm starting from absolute zero. I have some capital, but I don't have time.
Okay.
Buying a highly targeted list of, say, 10,000 corporate CEOs from a data broker feels like a brilliant strategic move.
It feels like a shortcut.
Right. If I'm throwing a VIP party and I don't know anyone in town, buying access to the VIP guest list seems like the fastest way to pack the room. Why shouldn't I do that?
Well, because those people aren't VIPs walking into your meticulously planned party. You didn't buy a guest list.
I didn't.
No, you bought a list of geographic coordinates for people's private homes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When you send an email to a bot list, you are essentially kicking down their front door, walking into their living room while they're having dinner with their family, and just shoving a flyer for your business right into their face.
That is a very visceral image. But, isn't that just cold outreach? People do cold calls all the time, right?
There is a distinct psychological difference between a cold call to a business line and an automated broadcast dropping into an inbox.
How so?
Well, an inbox is a highly curated, increasingly private space. When people look at their inbox, they expect to see correspondence from colleagues, updates from brands they explicitly chose to follow, messages from friends.
Right. It's their personal domain.
Exactly. When you bypass that curation process, because you bought their data from a broker who scraped it from a public directory or hit a pre-checked box at the bottom of a software update, you violate their autonomy.
That makes sense.
They have absolutely no idea who you are. They have not asked to hear from you. And rather than being intrigued, their immediate reaction will be resentment.
So the relational damage is instant. I've framed myself as an intruder from second one.
Precisely. You've introduced yourself as someone who doesn't respect boundaries. But even if we ignore the psychological damage, the technical consequences are catastrophic.
This is where the whole hack falls apart mechanically, right?
Yes. When you send a broadcast to 10,000 strangers, a massive percentage of them are going to hit the spam button.
Which trains their email provider to block me.
It's worse than that. Your open rates will be abysmal, And your click-through rates will be virtually zero. Gmail, Outlook, Apple Mail, their algorithms are constantly monitoring these engagement metrics.
They watch everything.
They do. When they see a mass email going out that no one is opening, and a high percentage of people are marking as spam, they don't just block that single email. They flag your entire sending domain. Your server reputation tanks.
Wait, so if I buy a list for a new product launch and ruin my domain reputation, does that mean my regular one-on-one emails to actual clients might start going to their spam folders?
Absolutely. You can compromise your primary business communication channel.
That's terrifying.
And here is the final nail in the coffin for bot lists. If you are using any reputable email service provider, an ESP like MailChimp, ConvertKit, ActiveCampaign,
Standard ones?
they universally prohibit uploading bot lists. They have to protect their own server infrastructure from being blacklisted.
Oh, because if you look like a spammer, they look like a spammer.
Exactly. The moment their compliance algorithms detect that you've imported a cold purchase list and triggered a high spam complaint rate, they will freeze your account and ban you permanently.
Wow.
Your shortcut just costs you your entire ability to send automated emails.
Okay, consider me terrified. Buying lists from shady data brokers is completely off the table. But what about the manual approach?
Like networking.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of seasoned professionals do this. Let's say I fly to a massive industry convention. I hustle for 3 days straight. I shake hands, I buy people drinks, I collect 300 business cards.
A classic scenario.
Right. I get back to my hotel room, open up my laptop, and I manually type all 300 of those email addresses into my newsletter database. We met face-to-face. We had a genuine connection. Surely that bypasses the stranger in the living room problem.
It bypasses the stranger problem, but it creates a massive betrayal of trust problem.
A betrayal of trust.
Think deeply about the social contract of handing someone a business card. What is the unspoken expectation in that moment?
I guess the expectation is that we might do business, or maybe I'll send a quick follow-up saying, hey, great meeting you at the bar. Let's schedule a Zoom call next week.
Exactly. It's an invitation for a one-to-one human interaction.
Yeah.
They absolutely did not consent to being dropped into a generic, automated, weekly broadcast funnel.
You know, I've actually been on the receiving end of this, and it is incredibly jarring.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. You have a nuanced, interesting conversation with someone at a networking event. You think you've made a real professional connection. And then without warning, 3 days later, you receive a highly formatted email with a banner graphic and the subject line, like, my top 5 synergistic paradigm shifts for Q3.
Which nobody wants to read.
Right. Instantly, whatever human connection we built just evaporates. I stop feeling like a peer and start feeling like a target.
Because it reveals how they actually viewed you. It shows you weren't an individual to them, you were just a data point to harvest. It completely undermines the personal relationship you just spent 3 days hustling to build.
It's almost tragic. You do the hard work of networking, and then you burn the network down by automating the follow-up incorrectly. So if we strip away the hacks, the data brokers, and the business card scraping, what is the baseline rule here?
The baseline rule, the absolute non-negotiable law of building a valuable list, is explicit permission.
Permission.
Building a list requires an active, conscious opt-in from the user. You have to ask, and they have to say yes.
So even with the business cards?
Even in that conference scenario, if you are standing face-to-face with a great prospect, you just change the script. You say, I actually put together a free report on the exact problem we were just discussing, and I send out a weekly email with more strategies. Would you like me to hook you up with a copy?
Oh, that's good.
You give them the agency to opt in.
That fundamentally shifts the dynamic. Because if they say yes, they are anticipating the email. They are welcoming it.
Precisely.
Okay, so we need people to willingly, enthusiastically sign up. To do that at scale on a website, we obviously need visitors, we need traffic. But before we even get into the psychology of sign-up forms, there's a crucial concept we need to explore here. The idea that not all website visitors are created equal.
This is where a lot of businesses bleed resources. They treat web traffic as a monolith. Like 1 million visitors is 1 million visitors, right?
Right.
But the focus has to be relentlessly on the quality and the mindset of that traffic, not just the sheer volume. There is a very clear psychological hierarchy of traffic quality when it comes to predicting how likely a visitor is to actually hand over their email address.
Let's unpack this hierarchy. At the very bottom of the pyramid, the lowest quality traffic for list building, we have social media traffic.
Yes.
Now, I can hear people yelling at their speakers right now because we are told constantly that we must be omnipresent on social media. Why is this traffic at the bottom?
It comes down to the neurological state of the user at the moment they encounter your link. Think about why people open a social media app.
Usually because they're bored.
Exactly. They're typically bored, looking for a quick hit of dopamine, or seeking passive entertainment. They are in a scrolling mindset. They want free, easily digestible, fleeting information.
Right. When I'm swiping through short-form videos on my couch at 10 p.m., I am not in the mental space to evaluate a complex B2B software integration, no matter how good the ad is.
You're just not. You might click a link out of mild curiosity, but the friction required to stop scrolling, read a landing page, type in your email address, and commit to an ongoing relationship is usually way too high for someone in a dopamine-seeking loop.
Make sense?
A certain percentage will subscribe, yes, but the conversion rate is traditionally the lowest of all traffic sources.
Okay, so moving one step up the hierarchy, we have search engine traffic. Google, YouTube search, Bing. Why does this convert better?
2 words. Active intent.
Active intent.
If someone finds your website through an organic search query or even a highly targeted paid search ad, they were not passively scrolling. They explicitly articulated a problem.
Right, they typed something in.
They went to a search bar and typed, "How to reduce churn in saws," or "Best acoustic treatments for home studios."
They're actively hunting for a solution.
Right. And if your website pops up and actually answers the specific question they just asked, the perceived value of your expertise skyrockets instantly.
Because you gave them exactly what they wanted.
Because you scratched the exact itch they had in that precise moment. The psychological leap to, I should get more information from this person, is much smaller. They are in a solution-focused brain state, not in an entertainment-focused one.
That makes perfect sense. But search intent still isn't the top of the pyramid, is it?
No, it's not.
The absolute holy grail of website visitors, the traffic that converts at the highest possible percentage, is endorsed traffic.
Endorsed traffic is arguably the most powerful mechanism in marketing because it relies on the psychology of borrowed trust.
Borrowed trust. I like that.
Endorsed traffic occurs when someone else, someone who already has an audience, recommends you. They send an email to their list saying, "You need to check out this person's work." Or they provide a prominent link to your landing page from their highly respected blog, or you co-host a joint webinar.
Let me try out an analogy here.
Go for it.
Endorsed traffic is like being personally introduced at an exclusive dinner party by the host.
Right.
You walk into a room full of strangers. If you just walk in off the street and start handing out your resume, people are going to back away from you. That's social media traffic.
Exactly.
But if you walk in, the room goes quiet, and the host of the party puts their arm around you and says, "Everyone, this is my good friend. They are brilliant, and you all need to listen to what they have to say." The dynamic is completely inverted.
Completely inverted.
You instantly possess credibility. The trust the guests have for the host transfers directly to you before you even open your mouth.
That is exactly how the psychology operates. The visitors coming from an endorsement arrive pre-warmed. They aren't skeptical. They aren't on high alert for a scam.
They already feel safe.
The internal monologue is, if Jane trusts this person enough to send me here, and I trust Jane, then this person must be valuable. Consequently, all the defensive barriers are lowered, and these visitors are exponentially more likely to subscribe to your emails.
So if you are listening to this and you're mapping out your marketing strategy for the next quarter, audit where you are spending your energy.
Yes, look at your energy allocation.
Shouting into the void of social media platforms hoping to go viral might stroke your ego with vanity metrics, but it is the hardest path to list building. If you want high-converting traffic, prioritize partnerships.
Write guest articles for respected publications in your niche.
Get booked on podcasts where the host can introduce you to their audience. Do joint ventures. Borrowing trust is always faster than building it from scratch.
Precisely. You want to engineer situations where traffic arrives at your digital doorstep, already primed to listen.
Okay, so let's set the stage. We've done the hard work. We aren't buying lists. We are focusing on high-intent search traffic and doing guest podcasts to drive endorsed traffic. We finally have high-quality eyeballs on our website.
Traffic is flowing.
Now we face the ultimate hurdle. We need them to actually type their email address into a little box and hit subscribe.
And this is where we have to transition from traffic strategy to behavioral psychology.
There is a core mathematical framework for this that I find absolutely fascinating. It takes the deeply human subconscious decision-making process, something that happens in a fraction of a second, and maps it to an equation.
The opt-in formula.
Yes, the opt-in formula.
It's a brilliant conceptual model because it forces you to look at your website through the eyes of a highly skeptical visitor.
And what's the formula?
The formula is this. Your opt-in rate equals the sum of the value plus the incentive, divided by the sum of the friction plus the risk.
Let me repeat that, because if you are taking notes, this is the architecture of the entire deep dive. Opt-in rate equals value plus incentive divided by friction plus risk. So it's a fraction.
It is a fraction.
If you want to dramatically increase the number of people joining your list, it's basic math. You have to increase the top of the fraction, the perceived value, and the immediate incentive. And you must ruthlessly decrease the bottom of the fraction, the physical friction, and the psychological risk.
That's the entire game.
So let's tear this formula apart variable by variable, starting with the V. Value, what does this mean in the context of an email list?
Value is the long-term perceived benefit the user believes they will get by allowing you into their inbox on a regular basis. And to maximize this V, we have to start by declaring a casualty in the business world.
Oh,
The word newsletter needs to be permanently retired from your vocabulary.
Rest in peace, the corporate newsletter. But why is it dead? I mean, I feel like 90% of the websites I visit still have a little box at the bottom that says subscribe to our newsletter.
And 90% of those websites have a conversion rate that is practically microscopic.
Really?
The word newsletter is toxic because of what it implies to the consumer. It implies news about my company. And we have to be brutally honest here. Nobody cares about your company's internal news.
Ouch.
Nobody cares that your firm just hired a new VP of Synergy, or that you won a regional award, or that you redesigned your logo.
It's harsh, but it's true. When I'm navigating my own busy life, I don't have the mental bandwidth to care about a corporation's milestones.
Exactly. When a visitor is hovering their cursor over an email field, subconsciously weighing whether to give you access to their digital living room, they are asking one entirely selfish question.
What's in it for me?
What is the long-term value for me? How does this make my life better, easier, or more profitable?
So if my pitch is subscribe to our free newsletter, I am effectively offering them zero perceived value. In fact, I'm offering them a burden. I'm promising to clutter their inbox with things they don't care about.
You are threatening them with a chore. To raise the V in our equation, you have to promise profound ongoing value. And the fastest, most effective way to communicate that is by changing what you actually call the email sequence. You have to name it after the benefit.
Let's look at some concrete examples of this because the contrast is staggering.
Imagine you are a B2B sales consultant. Instead of a weekly newsletter, what if the sign-up box offered client-winning tips delivered via email?
That's much better.
Or if you are an accountant, instead of financial firm updates, you offer the cash flow accelerator emails.
I want to look at one specific example from the text that really struck me. Let's say you are a family lawyer. The standard approach is the Smith & Jones law firm newsletter. But what if you change the framing entirely and offer a divorce survival bulletin?
That is incredibly powerful. Break down why that works.
Well, if I'm going through a terrible, emotionally devastating separation, my life feels like it's fallen apart. I am terrified of the legal system. I'm worried about custody. I'm worried about my finances. If a law firm asks me to join their newsletter, I'm going to ignore it.
Of course.
But a divorce survival bulletin, that specific wording implies you understand my exact agonizing pain point. It implies you're going to send me a literal lifeline. It promises a specific long-term outcome survival that I desperately need.
You've hit on the core mechanism. It requires deep empathy. You have to trace it back to your ideal client persona. You must understand their deepest anxieties, their most urgent goals, or the most painful problem keeping them awake at 2 a.m.
You really have to know that.
Once you identify that, you literally name your ongoing email communication after the solution to that problem. You aren't sending emails, you are delivering the antidote. That instantly maximizes the long-term value in our formula.
Okay, that handles the long-term promise. But human beings are notoriously bad at acting on long-term promises. We know we should eat vegetables for long-term health, but we ordered the pizza anyway.
Every time.
This brings us to the other half of the top of the equation, the I, the incentive.
Right. If value is the promise of long-term health, the incentive is the immediate gratification that gets them to act right this second. It's the ethical bribe. In marketing terminology, this is usually called a lead magnet. It's the free report, the template, the audio file you offer in exchange for the email address today.
Now, I want to push back on this because I see a massive trap that I think a lot of highly knowledgeable experts fall into.
Okay, what's the trap?
If I am an expert in my field and I finally have an endorsed visitor on my site, I want to blow them away. I want to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that I am the absolute authority.
Right.
Shouldn't my incentive, my lead magnet, be a massive 40-page comprehensive masterclass ebook that covers everything I know? Shouldn't I overwhelm them with value?
It is the most logical assumption in the world. If I give them more, they will love me more. But when we analyze how human beings actually consume digital information, we find a counterintuitive truth.
Which is?
Giving them a massive, comprehensive document doesn't just fail to help you, it actively sabotages your ultimate goal, which is usually to get them to hire you or buy your premium products later.
I am struggling to understand why over-delivering would hurt me. If I give someone a free textbook, shouldn't they be incredibly grateful?
Let's walk through the actual user experience.
Hmm.
Imagine you are the user. You have a problem. You find a site offering a comprehensive 50-page guide to resolving your problem. You type in your email. The PDF downloads. You open it. What happens in your brain the moment you see page 1 of 50?
Honestly, I feel a tiny spike of cortisol.
Right.
I feel overwhelmed. I'm already busy. I think, wow, this looks amazing, but I absolutely do not have 45 minutes to read this right now.
Exactly. So what do you do with the file?
I drag it to a folder on my desktop called To Read Later, or maybe Resources.
The digital graveyard.
Yeah, and I probably never, ever open that folder again.
Now, here is where the psychological sabotage happens. Next week, you get an email from that expert offering their paid consulting services or their premium course. Consciously or subconsciously, you remember that 50-page PDF sitting unread on your desktop.
Oh, I see where this is going.
You feel a pang of consumer guilt. You feel like you haven't done your homework. Your internal monologue says, I haven't even finished their massive free masterclass yet. I definitely shouldn't pay them for consulting until I get through the free stuff.
Oh, wow.
By giving them too much, you inadvertently constructed a massive psychological barrier to a future sale.
That is mind-blowing. By trying to prove my expertise with a giant document, I've actually paralyzed them. I made them feel inadequate, and that guilt prevents them from taking the next step with me.
Precisely.
Okay, if the comprehensive masterclass is a trap, what is the alternative? How do I design a lead magnet that actually works?
The most effective lead magnets solve what we call the first speed bump.
The first speed bump.
They do not try to solve the entire journey. They address a highly specific, painfully immediate problem that your ideal client is facing right at the starting line. It shouldn't be comprehensive. It should be hyper-actionable.
What does a first speed bump look like in practice?
Let's look at a brilliant example. Consider a web designer and marketer who wants to sell full, expensive website redesigns. If his lead magnet is the ultimate guide to modern web architecture, that's a 50-page PDF. It goes to the graveyard.
Right.
Instead, look at what DB Non-Tenant did. His lead magnet is a short document called Sales Spiking Website Tweaks.
Tweaks. That word is doing so much heavy lifting.
It is a masterclass in copywriting. Tweaks implies it's not a major, exhausting overhaul. It implies I don't need to know how to code. It promises immediate, small, manageable changes that I can implement in 10 minutes and see fast results.
Here's another scenario. Let's say you consult for freelance copywriters or designers. Their ultimate goal is to build a six-figure agency. But their first speed bump is the crippling anxiety they feel on a discovery call when a client asks, how much do you charge?
A paralyzing moment for almost every freelancer.
Yes. So Jason Leister's perfect lead magnet isn't how to build an agency. The lead magnet is a 3-page script titled, The Exact Words to Use When a Client Asks, How Much Do You Charge?
It's so narrow.
It isolates one micro moment of panic and provides instant relief.
Precisely. And by providing that instant relief, you earn profound trust. The user thinks, if their free 3-page script solved my anxiety this quickly, imagine how good their paid consulting must be. You've given them a quick victory, and momentum is the greatest sales tool in the world.
So if you are designing your incentive right now, shrink the scope, radically constrain it. Ask yourself, what is the very first, smallest problem my client encounters? Design a lead magnet so focused that the user can consume it, implement it, and get a tangible win within 15 minutes of downloading it.
That's the golden rule.
Oh, and what if you are someone who hates writing? What if the idea of formatting a PDF is your own personal speed bump?
There is a fantastic shortcut for that. The expert interview.
How does that work?
You don't have to write a single word. You find a colleague,
Oh,
Or you have someone interview you for exactly 15 to 20 minutes about one highly specific problem. You record the audio, export the MP3, and that is your lead magnet. Listen to this 15-minute raw audio session where I break down the exact strategy.
that's so
It
easy.
has high perceived value, zero formatting friction, and people can listen to it on their commute.
Perfect. So by creating a highly specific solution, the incentive, and wrapping it in a promise of ongoing relief, the value,
Yeah.
we have maximized the top half of our opt-in formula.
Now for the bottom half.
Now we have to wade into the murky waters of the denominator. We have to look at the forces dragging your opt-in rate down. We have to eliminate friction and mitigate risk.
Let's tackle friction first, the F in the equation. Friction represents every single element on your website that slows a visitor down, distracts their attention, or makes the physical process of typing their email address cumbersome.
To understand friction, you have to look at how most businesses design their primary real estate, the homepage. Let me build an analogy here. Sending your hard-earned, endorsed traffic to a typical corporate homepage is like trying to get someone to carefully read and sign a complicated legal contract in the middle of a loud casino.
A loud casino. I love that.
Think about it. You want them to focus on this one little signature line, but what is happening around them? There are flashing lights, slot machines are ringing, cocktail waitresses are walking by. There are hundreds of other things drawing their eye away from the dotted line.
That perfectly describes the architecture of a standard website. Think of the slot machines draining your visitors' attention capital. You have a massive navigation menu with drop-downs. You have a sidebar full of links to your recent blog post.
A widget showing your latest Instagram photos.
You have a banner carousel sliding every 3 seconds promoting 4 different products.
Yeah.
And somewhere, buried in that visual chaos, is a tiny box asking for an email address.
It is a state of massive cognitive overload.
Exactly. Every single link on that page is an invitation to click away from the opt-in form. Every image is a distraction. The data bears this out entirely. If you send traffic to a generic homepage, you are bleeding leads. A standard homepage might convert visitors into subscribers at a rate of 2 to 4% if you are lucky.
So how do we fix it? How do we take that user out of the casino?
We strip the casino down to an empty room with just a desk, a pen, and the contract. In digital terms, we use dedicated landing pages.
Walk me through the anatomy of a dedicated landing page. What makes it different?
A dedicated landing page is defined by what it lacks. When you are driving traffic from a specific source, say you just did a guest podcast interview, and you give the listeners a URL to get your free audio guide, you do not send them to your homepage.
Right.
You send them to a specific URL that exists for one purpose only. There is no navigation bar at the top. You literally remove the ability to browse the rest of your site. There is no sidebar. There are no social media icons.
Wait, I remove the navigation entirely? Doesn't that trap them on the page?
Yes, that is the entire point. You are forcing a binary decision. They can either read the compelling copy about your lead magnet and enter their email address, or they can close the browser tab.
You remove the choice.
You have removed the friction of choice. When you eliminate all other options, conversion rates explode. A well-designed, dedicated landing page can easily convert at 10, 20, or even 40%.
Because all of their attention is funneled directly into the value and the incentive. Okay, I understand the power of a landing page when I am controlling the traffic from a specific ad or a podcast interview. But what about organic traffic?
Like from a search engine.
Yeah, what if someone just stumbles onto my blog through a Google search? I can't put my entire blog on a dedicated landing page without navigation.
No, you can't. But you can strategically place your opt-in forms at the exact point where a reader is demonstrating the highest level of engagement. You have to intercept them when their intent is highest.
Give me some examples of high-intent placement.
Think about the flow of reading a blog post. Where do most people put the subscribe box? Usually in the right-hand sidebar. But tracking studies show that users develop sidebar blindness. They literally stop seeing anything outside the main text column.
So where should it go?
Instead, look at marketers like Pete Plaja. He places a massive opt-in form at the very end of every single article.
The logic there is bulletproof. If I just spent 6 minutes reading a 2,000-word article all the way to the absolute bottom, I am highly engaged. I have just received value. That is the perfect moment to say, want more of this. Don't make me scroll all the way back to the top to find a tiny box.
Precisely. Another highly underutilized spot is the About page. Data shows the About page is often the second most visited page on a site. If someone finishes reading an article and actively clicks your About link to learn who you are, They are demonstrating deep curiosity.
Oh, that's interesting.
Marketers like Derek Halpern will put multiple opt-in forms directly inside the text of their About page.
We are reducing the physical friction of making them hunt for the form, but this naturally leads us to the most controversial topic in the entire marketing ecosystem.
I know where this is going.
We have to talk about the pop-up.
Ah, the pop-up.
I hate them. You hate them. Everyone listening to this deep dive hates them. You are trying to read a recipe or an article, and suddenly the screen goes dark and a massive box jumps out demanding your email address.
Yeah.
It feels like the ultimate form of aggressive friction. It interrupts the user experience completely.
It really does.
So, my question is, if everyone despises them, why do we still use them? Shouldn't we abandon them on principle?
It is a deeply uncomfortable dilemma for anyone who cares about user experience.
Yeah.
Because the emotions say abandon them, but the data screams use them.
The data supports them.
If we are looking purely at the mathematics of list building, the evidence is undeniable. Case study after case study consistently shows that implementing a pop-up, often called a light box, increases overall website opt-in rates by 200% to 500%.
That is staggering. 2 to 5 times more subscribers just by forcing the interruption.
The psychology is simple. It forces a decision. Unlike a sidebar form that can be ignored, a pop-up demands that the user actively look at the offer and make a choice. Either engage with it or physically click the X to close it. That forced moment of attention is incredibly powerful.
So we just have to sell our souls and annoy our readers?
Not necessarily. The technology has evolved. You don't have to trigger a pop-up the millisecond a page loads, which is the most annoying implementation. You can use exit intent technology, where the pop-up only appears when the user's mouse rapidly moves toward the back button or the close cab button.
Oh, so they were leaving anyway.
Exactly. They were leaving anyway, so you throw a Hail Mary offer at them. Or you can set it to trigger only after they've scrolled 70% of the way down the page, ensuring you are only interrupting engaged readers.
There's also a slightly different iteration of this concept that I find really intriguing, the welcome gate.
Yes. The welcome gate is a fascinating compromise. Imagine you type in a URL to visit a blog. Before you even see the homepage, you are intercepted. A full-screen page loads. It's opaque, covering the site entirely.
Like a roadblock.
Kind of. This page offers the lead magnet in a highly focused way. But importantly, right beneath the subscribe button is a clear, visible link that says, "No thanks, just take me to the articles."
So it functions like a dedicated landing page, but it's draped over the front door of the website.
Exactly. It acts as a full-page interruption, but because the skip option is clear, it feels slightly less aggressive than a tiny pop-up box. And performance-wise, welcome gates routinely capture around a 10% opt-in rate, which is astronomically higher than relying on a passive sidebar.
So the uncomfortable reality is if you want to grow rapidly, you have to be willing to interrupt the user politely.
Yes, politely.
Okay, let's zoom in even closer. Let's say we have our dedicated landing page or our pop-up. The user's looking directly at the form. What causes friction inside the actual little box where they type?
Greed. Specifically, the business owner's greed for data. We all want to qualify our leads. We want to know exactly who is subscribing. So what do? We design an opt-in form that asks for their first name, their last name, their email address, their company name, their job title.
It may be their phone number, just in case we want to call them.
And every single one of those fields acts as a massive speed bump. Every extra field increases the perceived physical and cognitive effort. It increases the friction.
Let's talk about the phone number specifically, because that is a massive trigger. If I am downloading a free guide on website tweaks and the form demands my mobile number, my internal alarm bells go off.
Right. Why do they need that?
It's like asking for a social security number on a first date. I immediately assume you are going to hand my number to an aggressive sales team who will start cold calling me during dinner. The friction is so high that I just abandon the page entirely.
You perfectly illustrated how physical friction, like filling out a form, triggers psychological risk, like the fear of cold calls. Data on this is absolute. Every field you remove from a form increases the conversion rate. The most ruthless, effective marketers have stripped their forms down to one single field: the email address. Nothing else.
But doesn't that hurt personalization later? Don't I want their first name so I can start emails with, "Hi, John"?
It's a trade-off. Asking for first name and email address is generally accepted and only causes a minor drop in conversions while allowing for that personalization. But you must ask yourself, is the ability to say, "Hi, John," worth losing 10% of your total potential subscribers?
Usually not.
For many, the answer is no. Keep the fields to the absolute minimum required to deliver the value.
If you are auditing your site today, look at your form. If it has 4 fields, delete 2 of them. Remove the friction of greed. Oh, and one more micro-optimization on the form itself, the actual button they click. I see so many beautifully designed pages, incredible copy, and then a gray button that just says, Submit.
Submit is a terrible word. It sounds like I am filing my taxes or entering a plea in court. It is a sterile administrative command.
How do we fix the button?
The button text should reaffirm the incentive. It should describe the positive outcome they're about to experience. Instead of submit, the button should say, get free access. Or, tying back to our earlier example, send me the tweaks.
Oh, that's good. Send me the tweaks.
You want to remind them of the value at the exact point of action, counteracting any lingering friction.
That is a brilliant micro tweak. Okay, we are in the home stretch of the formula. We've maximized value and incentive. We've stripped away the friction of distracting layouts and greedy form fields. Now we are left with the final and perhaps most insidious variable in the denominator, risk, the R.
Risk is the invisible barrier. When a user is hovering their mouse over that Send Me the Tweaks button, they're experiencing a spike of anxiety.
Because we've been trained to be suspicious.
Exactly. The internet has trained us to be suspicious. They are terrified of what happens after they click. Will my inbox be flooded with 3 emails a day? Will they sell my data to a broker? Is there a hidden fee? Is this a bait and switch for an aggressive high-ticket sales pitch?
So how do we disarm that anxiety? The instinct, and I've done this myself, is to tackle it head on. If they are worried about spam, I should put a giant, bold padlock icon right below the email field and write in all capital letters, "We will never spam you. Your data is 100% secure." That seems like the logical way to lower risk.
It is logical, but human psychology isn't always logical. Behavioral testing shows that overemphasizing security and spam policies right next to the submit button can actually severely backfire.
Wait, really? Why? I'm telling them they are safe.
It comes down to a psychological concept called priming. By plastering the word spam across the page, even in the context of "we won't do it," you are actively injecting the concept of spam into their working memory right at the moment of decision.
Let me use an analogy here. It's like inviting a guest into your home, handing them a beautiful glass of ice water, and staring them dead in the eye and saying, "Drink up. Don't worry, it is definitely not poisoned."
Exactly. A second ago, they were just thirsty. Now, all they can think about is poison. They are inspecting the water for cloudiness. They are subtly suspicious of you. By trying to reassure them, you triggered their threat detection system.
Okay, so if the direct approach of promising not to spam them actually creates more anxiety, what is the superior method to lower perceived risk?
We return to the most powerful tool in the marketer's arsenal: social proof, borrowed trust.
We talked about this with endorsed traffic, but how does it apply to the design of the sign-up form itself?
If a new visitor sees that other people just like them, have already taken the risk and had a positive outcome, their own perceived risk drops to near zero. You have to use the voices of your existing happy subscribers to bridge the gap of skepticism for the new visitor.
There is an incredible case study regarding this. It's about a social media consultant named Laura Roeder.
It's one of the best examples of a micro-optimization yielding massive, measurable results. She was trying to increase her opt-in rate. She didn't redesign the whole page. She didn't add a massive privacy policy. She simply took a single, authentic quote from a happy subscriber and placed it right above her opt-in form.
And the quote wasn't some long, rambling testimonial about how her life was changed. The quote simply read, "Yours is the only newsletter that I actually read."
It is brilliant in its brevity. Think about what that single sentence accomplishes subconsciously. First, it implies she sends emails frequently enough to be considered a newsletter. Second, it acknowledges the universal truth that we all delete most of our emails. And third, it declares that her content is of such high value that it cuts through the noise. It completely eliminates the risk of "this will be annoying spam" by elevating the value.
And the result of adding that one sentence.
She increased her total signups by 24%.
Just from that.
Yes,
Yeah.
almost a quarter more subscribers, permanently, just by letting a customer validate the safety of the transaction.
That is the power of social proof. It does the heavy lifting for you. What are some other ways to display social proof at the point of opt-in, especially if you don't have a perfect quote yet?
If you have been building your list for a while, you can leverage the psychology of herd mentality by quoting your subscriber numbers. If your form says, "Join 8,721 other freelancers who get daily client-winning tips," you are sending a powerful signal of safety.
Safety in numbers.
Right. The visitor's subconscious thinks, well, if almost 9,000 people have handed over their email address and stuck around, it must be safe. They can't all be getting spammed. It dramatically lowers the psychological risk barrier.
So the strategy here is clear. Comb through your reply emails, find one amazing, authentic thing a reader has said about your content, and paste it right next to your subscribe button. Or, if your numbers are impressive, display them proudly. Let your audience mitigate the risk for the new visitor.
And when you combine all of that, when you maximize the long-term value with a specific promise, when you offer a hyper-targeted incentive that solves a fast problem, when you ruthlessly eliminate the friction of distracting layouts and greedy form fields, and when you crush perceived risk with social proof, that is how you master the opt-in formula.
This entire exploration has been a massive paradigm shift. If we pull all these threads together, from avoiding the dark arts of bot lists to stripping down the loud casino of a homepage, what we are really talking about is a profound exercise in psychological alignment.
That's a great way to put it.
Building a high-value email list isn't about manipulating code or tricking people into giving up their data. It is fundamentally about understanding human behavior and respecting human attention. By offering immense, immediate value that solves a real pain point, by clearing away every possible digital hurdle so the path is effortless, and by relying on the genuine trust of others to create a safe environment, you completely change the dynamic of the internet. You transform a cold, transactional, anonymous web visit into the beginning of a warm, long-term, and mutually profitable relationship.
I would call it empathy codified. You are systematically respecting their time, anticipating their anxieties, solving their immediate problems, and creating a perfectly safe, frictionless environment for them to raise their hand and say, yes, I actually want to hear more from you. That is the only sustainable way to build an ecosystem that actually drives a business forward.
But of course, getting them on the list is only the first victory. Now that you've built this frictionless machine and you have a growing database of eager subscribers waiting to hear from you, what on earth do you actually write in the subject line so they open your first email instead of immediately deleting it? That's exactly what we'll uncover in the next chapter.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.